a particular question is being asked in an interview, that what is the difference between illegal argument exception and illegal state exception, how you are going to resolve all these kinds of exception. People simply tend to get confused, because they are already trying to learn this particular concept by going through some of the examples, but they are not able to understand what it actually is all about. In my last lecture, I have totally discussed about this particular illegal argument exception example, where we generated this exception with the help of this very very liner kind of code, and everything was clear. So if you just learn this McDonald's example, which is already described in clear cut detail in my last lecture, in your entire lifetime, I guarantee that you won't be able to get confused, or it would not happen that that you do not remember this particular exception at any point of time, right? So guys, first try to understand what it is all about. Okay, then only you will be able to understand how to resolve it, because I've seen guys in organizations uh, spending hours and hours on in order to get rid of this particular illegal state exception. Why? Because they do not know when it occurs, why it occurs, what it actually is all about, right? So without wasting any more time, let's get dive onto our lecture. So guys, today we are going to understand illegal state exception only. Okay, so first we are going to understand what this illegal state exception is all about, right? And what it is. So I have jotted down one of the two simple two liner definitions over here, and with the help of each and every example, I think I would be able to make you guys understand what it is all about. So guys, I have written over here that when we try to call a method at an illegal or at an inappropriate time, then this exception is generated. This exception gets generated on its own. It's not like illegal argument exception, where that you have to write it onto your code. It will get generated on its own. The very first basic difference between that and this particular exception. Okay, and it means that a method has been invoked at a wrong time. So what this first line basically means, I hope few people have been able to understand, few are not getting, but with the help of each and every example, everything will make sense at the end of the lecture. Well, I will be reiterating each and everything one more time. Okay, so when we try to call a method at an inappropriate time, something would happen. Let's say you are calling your friend at 2 a.m. in the morning. He's bound to throw some sort of exception that hey dude, I cannot come, because it's not your normal calling hours or normal meeting hours, right? So let's try to understand it with the help of example. So guys, I've already created a particular class named as illegal state over here, and now with the point by point we are going to cover each and everything that I have jotted down over here. So here I have written that when a method has been invoked at a wrong time, or method has been called at the wrong time. So what it means that calling a method at a wrong time. So with the help of this particular scenario, we'll be covering it. If we try to call iterators remove method before next method, you will be able to get this particular exception. I hope I'm making sense. But first, try to understand it with the help of an example. Let's take an example of an array list, like ARRAY array list of type integer. I am taking, guys, to new array list. So guys, this is a particular array list, and for this to work, you need to import it. And this onto this array list, I'm going to add some of the elements, like L1 dot add integer. I'm adding 5. L1 dot add integer, I am adding 6. So let's say I have added these two elements onto my array list, and if you want to see that whether they have gotten added to this particular array list, you need to print it out, right? So in order to print it out, you can simply make use of a for loop. So So guys, what this particular for each loop is doing, it is simply doing that for each element I that is present onto this array list L1, you have to print the value of I, right? So all the elements that were added over here, they simply got added. Oh, sorry, they simply got shown in the form of output as 5 or 6. If I add one more element, it will simply show as 5, 6, 7 in the same way. So this is a very simple example where I have added and I am just retrieving values by using for each loop onto an array list. Okay, now moving ahead, it is the main core part of this particular example. I'm going to use an iterator of type integer. It equals L1 dot iterator. So I'm going to run this iterator onto this array list, and in order to make it work you need to just import it from java.util package, right? So now come over here, what I've written is that if we are going to call iterators remove method before next method, so what is written over here, what the hell it is saying, let's get it clear with the help of this example, right? So guys, some values have already been added over here, right? But if you do not point anything, how you are going to remove it? Let's say I'm taking example of a particular shelf. Let's say this is your entire house, right? If I ask you that go and remove all the clothes of your house and put them onto the floor, let's say just an example. So what you're going to do? Are you really going to put all the clothes from wherever, from each and every corner? There may be, multiple number of floors in your house, first floor, second floor, third floor. You are going to remove all the clothes and you are going to put onto them bucket and you are going to put onto the floor. Are you going to do that? No, right? I have to point you out to somewhere that, go to my home, go to my first floor, and onto my first floor there is a shelf present onto the section B, right? So here there is a shelf, and now go and remove all the clothes that are present over here. I have to point you out somewhere. Only then you can do this, right? Otherwise, you will be, totally in a state of confusion, and you will be say that, I am bound to through an illegal state because you are totally in uncertain state. You simply do not know what to do at this particular point of time, and that, from where to pick the clothes and where to put them off, right? In the same way, if I simply add over here that it dot remove, so remove method is going to remove some values, but if I just run it, it will simply show me java dot lang dot illegal state exception, right? Why it is showing me illegal state exception? Because I am not pointing it. So if you are not pointing it, like let's say same scenario over here, if you are not pointing that particular person to which shelf to take clothes off, how that person is going to do that job, right? So if I do it dot next, it means that now I have pointed it to somewhere, to some direction, to some place, right? And now when I run it, it's gonna remove, right? So guys, this is what the very first thing is saying over here, that if we call a method, a remove method before next method, which basically is saying about this particular very first line, which says that, calling a method at an inappropriate time. So over here, if you call this method at an inappropriate time or at inappropriate place would be like this. If you are not pointing it and you are calling it, so it will simply tend to get confused and it will simply say, I am stuck in an illegal state, I do not know what to do, right? So this was the very first example, guys, where we have done, we have shown that, if you do not point, it's gonna show you, or it's gonna throw you illegal state exception. So you have to point it out somewhere. So that's why over here I have written that if you try to call iterators remove method before next method, this is the first scenario or the second scenario, whatever it may be, this is gonna occur, right? So this is the first case where it's gonna occur. It occurs into many number of cases, but I have jotted down 3 cases over here. Okay. Now coming back to the second example. If we try to add element to a queue which is already full, then in such case illegal state exception will get generated. It simply means that, when a shelf is already full, you cannot add some more clothes to it, right? So if you keep on adding, if you ask a person that to your maid or anyone that go and put these 15 20 clothes onto this particular my shelf, but your shelf is already full, then your waiter or whatever your maid would be totally confused what to do. He has asked me to put it onto the shelf, but the shelf is already full, right? So in these kind of scenario it also occurs, but I will give you a demo as well of this particular stuff, right? I'll simply delete it, and let's say since I have written over here that uh, adding elements to a queue, let's take example of a queue. We'll type integer, and also yeah, I need to define it that this is of also type integer. You need to just import it. Fine. So this is a queue I have defined over here. So queue dot add, I'm going to add an integer as 70 over here, and now queue dot add integer like as 80 over here. So onto this particular queue, guys, I have already added two elements. If you want to see, if you want to run it, see two elements have been added successfully over here. But what if I make this queue as full? If this queue gets full, you won't be able to add any more elements. So let's say I define it over here. I give some values over there like as 2. So you cannot add more than 2 elements over here. So now if you try to add, it will show some error like 80. Let's say, sorry, 90. See, it shows you that java.lang.illegalStateException queue is already full. I mean, you cannot add. Okay. So these are the 2 points that we have already discussed that have been jotted down over here. It is also thrown when Java environment or application is not in an appropriate state for the requested operation. That's why I have shown you this particular example. Your queue is not in an appropriate state for the requested operation. This is the requested operation. Your queue is not in an appropriate state. The queue is already full. I hope guys I'm making sense, because I've seen many number of people explaining illegal state exception. They simply go and they code it down, and the guy is simply looking onto the sky and feeling hopeless that example is given and that person is still not able to understand. So why I'm giving these kinds of examples, so that you can correlate them onto your daily life examples and you're able to understand it. So your shelf is full, you cannot add any more elements. It will simply say that your queue is full. Okay. So these are the two scenarios till now we have discussed where you would be getting this illegal state exception. And now the very third example is that if you try to start the same thread once again. So guys, I'll just give you an example of thread over here. I would not go deep dive because thread is a totally different concept. It will again take 15, 20, 30 minutes for me in order to make you guys what this thread is all about. My scope today, I have limited deliberately onto this state exception, what it is, what it actually means, because people are totally confused. I'm saying, people, whenever I've seen guys seeing this illegal state exception, they simply go to stack overflow or to any other sites and they start searching it without even, if you know that it may happen that a queue is full, or you are calling a function, this kind of stuff, or the thread is running, or when it occurs that if your application is an unappropriate state, it cannot handle the requested operation, or you are calling it at the wrong time. Let's say I do not know this particular iterator example, let's say I forgot. So you can make your own program that you're calling a function at an illegal time, like I was calling that iterator dot remove without pointing it to iterator dot next, right? So in that way, if you learn these examples onto your daily life, you will be able to just correlate it. Again, without wasting time, moving on to my third example. So again, I am going to remove it over here, and let's say thread abhinav equals new thread. Okay. So, so what happens in the case of thread, guys? If a thread, let's say, I am starting a particular thread. A start is a function that simply starts a thread. So, what is a thread in a basic, in a very very normal English language? It means a sequence of operations that keep on going, right? I know it's not the exact meaning, but somewhere It's near to the exact one, right? So sequence of operations start executing it, or they are in execution, or they are in the pipeline. So that is basically called a thread. So let's say I have started a thread and the thread name was Abhinav. So I have started Abhinav over here, right? Since Abhinav has already started, if I restart Abhinav again, see, first I'll just run it. Everything is working fine, no exception, no error, right? But now, what if I start Abhinav again? See, it will give you java.lang.thread state exception. Okay, so why it is giving you thread state exception? Let's say, try to understand it with the help of a pizza delivery man. Let's say this is a pizza delivery man. He already got five different orders, and now he is already on his bike or on his car, and he is already on his way to reach his customers. Customer 1, customer 2, customer 3, customer 4, and customer 5. He's already on his way to customer 1, and then he'll go to 2, 3, and 4, 5, right? But since he's already on his way, he's already on his road, how can you restart him again? It cannot happen, right? Once he has already started his work, first let him, allow him to get finish all these particular jobs, allow him to finish his pizza delivery to C1, C2, C3, C4, C5. Then only you can assign him some different task or some other task. Just try to understand this with the help of this example. This is not the exact Java example, guys. I am just making you guys, so that you are able to understand what what I have written over here, right? So if you start a thread again, Java will simply say that, java.lang.illegal thread state exception. So because it has already started, you cannot restart it again. It's a dead thread kind of stuff. Okay. But if you just copy it out, and if you start a new thread, let's say Abhinav, let's take example of Rahul, right? You can start Rahul again. Not again, you can start Rahul. So two different threads can be started. But again, if you just try to restart Rahul again, it will simply show error, right? It simply means that, a person who is already waking, how can you wake him up again, right? So this is that kind of example. I'm already wake up again feeling great, but you cannot ask me and say that, Abhinav, just wake up again. I'm already wake up, I'm not sleeping, right? So this was just a normal, your daily life example with the help of which you can, just learn or go through these particular concepts. You would be able to, recognize, or you would be able to correlate whenever somebody asks you what illegal state exception is all about. Okay, so again, I'm just reiterating everything once in a while, so that it gets stuck onto your mind. So when we try to call a method at an inappropriate time, this will get generated. If you call a method at an inappropriate time means that, you are removing something, and that thing is not even present over there. That kind of stuff. Okay. Secondly, it is thrown when application is not in an appropriate state. Appropriate state basically means that, I am not in a state, I do not have that level of energy, but you are requesting me to go and run a marathon, right? I have energy to run only 500 meters, and you are asking me to go and run for a full marathon, right? I cannot do that. I will simply show everyone that, I am going to throw this illegal state exception. Okay. In the same way, if you try to add elements to a queue which is already full, then in such case illegal state exception will get generated, where I already depicted you the example of a queue. And if you try to start the same thread again, then also it is gonna give you illegal state exception, right? And the example is still already present onto your screen over here right now. Okay, so what this thread is all about, guys, it will really take me a lot of time again to make you guys understand what thread is all about. But at this point of time, let's say Abhinav is wake up, Rahul is also waking up. We cannot ask them to wake up again. If a person is sleeping, you cannot ask that sleeping person to sleep again. So just learn it at this particular point of time. I'll cover everything in detail later on, but my scope of this particular lecture is totally based on illegal state exception. So I hope you guys have got the basic idea of what illegal state exception is. I've already given you guys the demo of 3 demos when adding a queue which is already full, calling a remove method before pointing it to the next method, and starting the same thread once again. Okay, so guys, I hope I have literally saved some of your time when you are going for an interview. Just watch my video, watch my lecture, and you will be able to at least give some answers of this particular question: what is illegal state exception? In my next lecture, guys, stay tuned. I'll be covering a concurrent modification exception, and I will be giving you some interview examples as well that are normally asked in your multinational companies or even your startups kind of organizations as well, right? So guys, please stay tuned, and thank you for your time and thank you for your patience. Thank you.